Right, guys, welcome back to another Southend Dog Training podcast. This week's special guest goes by Dr. Nick Thompson, the holistic vet. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. We've managed to get you on here via a Zoom because I now understand you're a very busy person. Uh, yeah, thank you for coming on.
Oh, no, absolute pleasure. It's great to be here. It's because you're in Southend, which is probably, as the crow flies, what, 130 miles from me, 140 miles. But to get there around the M25 and, through the back roads of Essex and things, that would have taken me half a day. So, yeah, if you're okay with doing a Zoom, I'm pretty good for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a first for me,
Oh,
doing one like this. Normally we have the guests down at our studio. Uh,
mm,
if this one works out, then it does actually open the door to have, say, guests from a lot further afield, because we have a lot of Americans that want to come on a podcast.
yeah.
So this is really the tester, Nick. If this one
Yay.
works out
Great.
well for everybody enjoys it in this type of format, then
Yeah.
onto a winner. So thank you. Thank
Okay,
you very
cool. Listen, I do these all the time, so I will lead you through by the hand.
much.
Not a problem. It's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. There goes my first question. You just answered it. So this isn't your first podcast. You do many podcasts, Nick.
Yeah, I do like two a week these days. And also we do Raw Pet Medics. So if anybody's interested in dogs, health, nutrition, a bit of banter, what basically we talk we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we talk about serious things. We're called the Raw Pet Medics, RPM, Raw Pet Medics, and we're on
Lovely.
Facebook Live at 7 p.m. every Tuesday UK time, and people are welcome to come and join us.
Wicked. I might even pop in on that.
Yeah, and it's a freebie as well. You don't get many of those these days, so
No,
yeah, jump in,
no. With
jump
the
in.
cost of living and everything going up, Nick's giving you something for free. At the
Yeah,
end of this,
yeah,
we'll just remind everyone where they can follow you, where they can find you, what you've
yeah,
got going on.
cool.
For the audience watching and listening, can you tell me what a holistic vet is and the difference between, say, a holistic vet and a conventional vet for anybody
Okay.
that may not
Okay.
know?
I think that's a pretty good place to start. And I've been thinking about that for a long time. So let's use an example. So you've got an 8-year-old lab who's gone a bit lame. Okay. You take them to the conventional vets, and on the first, we'll just talk about the first visit. And on the first visit, they will make sure there's nothing broken, nothing looking like tumors or anything hideous, and they'll send you away with a painkiller. I think you can pretty much 100% guarantee you're going to go home with some Metacam or something similar. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Whereas if you came to me, okay, it's longer, more in-depth consultation, and by that time you would have had 5 to 20 consultations with your conventional vet. But let's just assume it's a fairly fresh case. I'm going to be looking at why is that dog lame? I'm going to be looking at the diet. I'm going to be looking at the structural integrity of that dog, and maybe we're going to be and we're going to examine them from a musculoskeletal point of view, as well as looking at the original lesion. Have they torn a cruciate, or have they got a thorn in their foot, or whatever it might be? We do the basics just like the conventional guys, but then we're going to look further if it is if it's not entirely clear. So one of my first stops would be to use either acupuncture or osteopathy. I've got a network of fantastic osteopaths around the south of England. I use them all the time. For example, Adam, if you had a bad back, would you go to the doctor, or would you go and see the osteopath or the chiropractor or somebody like that?
I would go and see a sports therapist, chiropractor, that sort of stuff.
But
Uh,
you wouldn't go and see the doc. That's what I'm saying.
no, so the reason I wanted to do this is because I love your approach. I think what you do is absolutely fantastic.
Bless you.
And I'm a big believer when it comes to
Yeah.
both behavior and vets that medication is just slung at dogs now for virtually everything. And we're not really getting to the deep root of the issue. It's almost like just putting a band-aid over everything.
Yeah, yeah. And the way I look at that, and I'm not saying they do or they don't, I'm not going to make a judgment on every vet in the entire country, but very often with conventional medicine, I'm talking about conventional veterinary medicine, I'm talking about um, human medicine. It is really you're just treating the tip of the iceberg. So if you want a really simple difference between what I do and what some of my conventional, who are very good, conventional colleagues do, it will be they tend, not always, to look at the tip of the iceberg. I always look at the whole iceberg. What's above the water, what's below the waterline, because that I think is the way to truly treating that dog in totality. Yeah. So, like I said, we're looking at diet, we're looking at supplements, we're looking at what's actually wrong. Is the dog straight? Are they, is their pelvis out? Very subtly that only an osteopath or sports physio could detect. Is are they running out of energy? Have they got hypothyroidism and therefore they're more prone to getting injuries? Um, we're going to be looking basically we're looking at things at a much deeper level. Yeah.
No,
So it's a bit like saying, you take your car, tell me when to stop because I could talk about this all day. Okay.
mate,
But
you are the guest, you are the star. Yeah,
bless you.
we are here to educate the public further on holistic vets and what they can be doing when it comes to diet, when it comes to their health and everything.
Rock and roll, rock and
So
roll. We're on the same page.
you talk away,
Okay,
buddy.
so it's a little bit like you take your car to the garage with a little prang in the on the wing. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, at the front wing, and the more conventional approach would be right. We'll knock out the panel and you're good to go. Okay, and that's kind of the conventional approach. What they might do is say, we noticed that when we test drove your car, it was swerving off to the left, and this you said that this problem was because you swerved off to the left at a junction or something like that. Or it might be your tires are a little bit low, or it might be that some other reason that is not entirely obvious. You see what I mean by the tip of the iceberg and looking at the whole of the iceberg? That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm trying to get at, really.
I I love that because it's kind of how we approach sort of dog training in a sense.
Yeah.
It's not a case of just throwing medication at the dog because it's misbehaving. And before anybody takes what I say as gospel,
Mm, mm,
we're not here to attack vets. We're not here to attack
of
other
course.
trainers or anything like that.
Of
There are
course.
some fantastic vets out there. There's some fantastic trainers out there. I'm talking about the portion of people that just want to slap medication on everything because we're seeing more and more of that. Whereas
Yeah.
I like to find out why the dog's anxious, what's making the dog anxious. And it's funny you mentioned diet. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I
Mm,
look at the diet. Is the diet contributing to the health, contributing to the behavior? I wrote about this in my book. We know that if a dog is on a diet that doesn't agree with it, it can make the dog uncomfortable
yeah.
physically, internally, which we also know if a dog is uncomfortable, that can make the dog behave uncharacteristic. There go. It's looking deeper, it's finding out why the dog's doing it and then working with the dog to change its emotional response so it feels more comfortable in
Yeah.
all areas.
Totally. Totally. We're on the same page. Yeah. Yeah.
So, in terms of diet, uh, obviously, I know the answers to these questions, but
Hmm.
for the audience listening at home,
Fire away.
what diet would you typically recommend for a dog?
I reckon 98% perhaps of dogs of any age, any breed in the UK can do just fabulously on a raw food diet. Now, some people will freak out and go, "Oh my God, I can't do that." Possibly
I can
because
hear the
I
pitchforks
I never
already.
go to I never go to the butcher because I'm vegetarian or something like that. But actually, there are loads of really fantastic companies these days who will make up the meat and the bone and the organ and put in some nuts, herbs, and seeds and spices and a bit of this and a bit of that and send it as a complete and balanced meal, which you can use together with other meals to produce a complete and balanced diet. It is as simple as that. I've done a video. You can see it on holisticvet.shop. I'll send you the links at the end if you like. And it's called Raw Feeding the Basics, and that's it. It's like in just shy of 2 hours, it takes you from zero to hero of being a raw food feeder.
I, I love that. So for me, raw food, we're a huge advocate for them.
Awesome.
We sell our own raw food.
Oh, you do. Great.
Yeah, so we have our own brand of raw food, and a lot
Great.
of people think that when I talk about raw food and the benefits of raw food, I'm
Yeah.
talking about it because we're selling it. They're talking almost as a sales pitch.
Yeah.
But in actual reality, I've been feeding raw food now for the best part of a decade, and the reason we sell raw food is because we believe in it that much. But the reason I switched over to raw food is because my Staffordshire Bull Terrier, the dog that started Southend dog training, she used to get terrible blocked anal glands. And I always knew when her anal glands were blocked because she'd get very defensive if a dog went to sniff her backside. So I take her to the vets. They would sort out the anal glands. We'd go back. A month later, we're back at the vets. We're just going
Mhm.
round in this vicious loop.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I just started searching alternatives, almost an holistic approach, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I discovered raw food. I
Yeah.
put her on raw food, and she never got blocked anal glands again.
Perfect.
And then I had clients who dogs were scratching themselves silly. Uh, and they were having all these like allergy tests done, all these prescription diets. But again, they were always in the same boat. The dog's very uncomfortable, the owners are very stressed. So I recommended a raw food diet and it fixes the problem.
I've done a video on that as well. You can see it on the. I am plugging crazily, but
Plug
you
away,
know
mate.
what? We've only got an hour, and we're going to discuss 20 subjects. So you're only going to get 3, 4 minutes on any given subject.
Yeah.
So if you want to put some meat on the bones, have a look at holisticvet.shop. And there are 3 courses, and you can jump in. There's one on bones, there's one on itch, why do dogs itch, and another one on raw feeding the basics, which I think is a pretty good place to start on your journey of self-education to kind of answer the questions that you may be struggling to get from Google.
Yeah. Uh, when it comes to raw food,
Yeah.
what made you so passionate about raw food? What when did you discover raw food was a key component for dogs?
Um, I I was raised. My mother was a nurse. My dad was a doctor, and we were always fed like really healthy food. So I knew that food is massively important to health. And then I went to vet college, and we had the Hills talk, and we didn't have very much in terms of nutrition education. And in terms of kind of food education, yeah, we get taught about biochemistry and how energy is made and ATP and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of how to feed a sick dog, how to feed a dog for health, we from memory got zero. Okay, and and then I started studying homeopathy, veterinary homeopathy, and within that there is a concept called remove obstacles to cure. Okay, and so I was maybe 6 months into this course, and so and they would one of the lecturers talking about remove obstacles to cure. Yeah, so that means if you've got a splinter in your leg, take it out before you start dressing the wound. If in a really simple way, but it just suddenly struck me like a road to Damascus conversion, thinking if you're feeding ultra processed food, ultra processed kibble or cans, how can you possibly? Okay, and I was 3, 4, 5 years into my career here, and so it'd been kibble, cans, kibble, cans, kibble, cans, kibble, and it just struck me: how can you possibly be healthy? How can your dog possibly be healthy if you're eating ultra processed bloody food every single day? And I'll tell you what, there's a study from 2018. It was a French study. They looked at about 600,000 people, human beings. They're the ones with 2 legs, and they found that for every 10% increase in ultra processed food, you got a corresponding 10% increase in likelihood of getting cancer. And with women and breast cancer, 12% increase. Okay. And we are told to feed our dogs 100% ultra processed kibble or cans or both. Adam, you couldn't make this stuff up. You with me?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in a nutritionally beneficial diet for people as well. We all know that
Totally.
the more processed food you eat, many times you start to get bloated, overweight. It affects your mental health, it affects your
Yeah.
physical health. And
Yeah.
when we start to eat clean, we see a massive difference all round. I
Hmm.
know if I'm a bit naughty and load up on sugar, because everyone deserves a treat here and
Everybody does. Yeah. Yeah.
but then I almost these days afterwards, I'm like, just it just zaps the life out of you effectively.
Mm,
When you're eating like single ingredient foods, whole foods, and things like that, you feel much better. And
yeah.
for some reason, we're a lot more sort of nutritionally conscious these days about what we're putting into our bodies, out the two-legged
Totally.
bodies. But
Yeah.
for some reason, we still just go and buy supermarket kibble for the dog, or just blindly give them, as you say, ultra processed food.
Yeah.
So you're quite active on social media. You've built up quite a social media following. We'll
Yeah.
link your Instagram page.
Yeah, Insta and Facebook. I've got a system whereby I put things on Instagram because it's easy because I don't like Facebook. I use it for work, but that's about it. And it pings it over to Facebook. So if people want to join in, I put some fairly controversial stuff up there because I just think life is short. I see that as the truth, and as long as I'm not maligning anybody, I put it up there.
No, and that's brilliant. The reason I bring up your social media is because obviously you're a big advocate for raw feeding.
Yeah, very
So do
much so.
you encounter a lot of pushback as a result of that? Do you?
No,
No.
no, no. I think I've been around so long, people they either think I know what I'm talking about, these are the conventional vets, or uh, I'm just trying to think. I am making these answers up as we go along, but no, I don't get a lot of pushback. Okay, I think they either keep silent because they think, oh God, he probably does know what he's talking about, or um, they will, I don't know, have their own opinion. But usually, and I'll tell you what, the new breed of vets, I have to say, if anybody's been qualified in the last 7 years or so, they tend to be a little tiny bit more open to what would be considered fringy, like raw food 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
20 years ago, there were just a few lone voices, but now there's the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, which anybody can join. So jump in there, and we're forming a network in the UK, in Europe, around the world, and we're all coming together. It's like it's a quiet, beautiful revolution that is happening, which is promoting dog health in just the most glorious way.
I really like that. I am some of the topics we're going to touch on later, things like spay and neutering,
Yeah.
vaccinations. I'm
Mm.
finding that we're seeing a lot more change in the modern vet. I'm
Hmm.
seeing now clients come to me whose vet has recommended raw food to them, and we are starting to see that, which I'm very, very grateful for,
Yeah.
because as you say, many times the biggest argument I see for people that are against raw food is
Hmm.
often my vet doesn't recommend raw food. My vet is against raw food. My vet says raw food's dangerous. Your dog's going to get salmonella and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so raw food, obviously,
I've actually done another video for that, and
have you?
yeah. It's on a. Let me just grab the link. I got this because I knew we'd go through this sooner or later. If you go to the Billinghurst dot Institute, Billinghurst as in Ian Billinghurst, Billinghurst Institute, and you go to their courses, that you go up to the top corner, you press courses, and then you'll see raw conversations. And I've recorded two almost 3 hour long courses whereby I take people through how to talk to your vet about raw. But I've also done one for professionals, whether you're a groomer or a vet nurse or a vet, of how to talk to your clients about raw or any other. How can you can improve your communication skills within the consulting room. So that's at the Billinghurst Institute. Have a look at the courses, and my courses are called Raw Conversations. I'll send you links.
I love that. Evan, my business partner, is sitting next to me at
Yeah.
his desk. He's just brought it up now on his phone, and he was just showing me pictures. You can see me.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. You have to dig a little bit for the courses because they're trying to keep the front face as clean as possible. But people are, people are welcome to dig into that. I've been in practice over 30 years, so I've made every communication mistake in the book, and I've put them all down so that you can learn from my mistakes.
And
So,
I thought I was becoming a dinosaur in this industry at 13 years. Uh,
right.
but no. So for the audience listening or watching, can you list some of the key benefits to raw food?
Okay, let's go from front to back. So we're going from nose to tail. And we are going to put so improvement in teeth. You even within 2 3 weeks you will see if you're feeding raw food and either chews or bones, ideally bones, but that may become a bit later. Let's not complicate it. So teeth improve. Appetite will generally improve with dogs when they're on raw food. I know loads of dogs who 5 7 years old, and the owner says, nah, they're not fussy about food. You put them on raw, boom, they're at your feet as soon as you start making tea in the evening. So then we talk about, okay, so digestion. Absorption of nutrients is better in the gut, so that feeds the skin. We will often see a bloom coming out in the skin, sometimes within days, like 5 7 days. Okay, because those rich fatty acids will be migrating out to the skin, and you will see a bloom, as opposed to that kind of slightly staring coat that you can see in the kibble and can fed dogs. Okay, so going down, because we have a really good balance of fine bone in many of the minces that we're feeding. That's where you will get improvements in the firmness of the stool. That can happen within 48 hours in some dogs, and that is why your Staffy improved with anal glands, because the poos improved, because the food was more species appropriate, and because the bone there was producing a really good firm stool in order to squeeze those anal glands. It's as simple as that. Energy. So really, that's from tail to the from the toe from the nose to the tail. Energy, the general level of energy in these dogs is much, much better. If they've had kind of chronically, my gut's not so good, my gut's a little bit painful, and they're a bit off with other dogs because of it, you can see that disappear. Okay. Also, what we often see is some dogs, after they have kibble, will do the wall of death around the kitchen. You know, they'll
Yeah.
just go loopy loo around the kitchen. Stop in most cases. Okay, because they're not getting this massive carbohydrate hit where they're like this. They're just going, yeah, fat, protein, some phytonutrients from the herbs and the spices and all the goodness that comes in. My body recognizes this because this is what my body has been designed over 45 million years to consume. You know,
It's funny you mention, lost my chain of thought there completely.
funny I
Uh,
mentioned something. Herbs, spices.
no, no,
Development over the last 45 million years?
no. I'm sure it'll come back to me. We was talking about, yeah, no, it's one of those ones that completely just lost.
No,
Like
it's fine. Either edit it out, or if you think of it, if you think of it in 20 minutes, give me a shout.
I was just thinking about the poops.
Yeah,
The poops. Obviously, we know that it helped with the anal glands, but
totally.
the size of the poops, like because I had a Staffy and a Rottweiler when I started Southend dog training. The Rottweiler's poops, they used to take like 3 bags to pick up. Then you switched her to raw food, and then all of a sudden
So
it's
one bag. She's a one bag girl. Yep.
and the smell. You
Yep.
can pick a
Yep.
dog out of a crowd of raw fed dogs. You put 10 dogs in a row that are raw fed and add dog number 11 that's not. You can tell straight away if that dog's been fed raw food or not.
Foul feces. Foul feces. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because dogs are not cows. They're not meant to eat loads of cereal.
And the increased appetite. Sammy, my staff, she was so fussy. So
Yeah.
was Roxy. We lost our terrier mix last
Ah,
week.
yeah. Oh God, bless you, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry. Sorry.
she was 14, nearly 15, but she was the fussiest eater in the world when we got her.
Mm,
Switched her straight over to raw food, and all of a sudden, she just developed a proper appetite. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. They'll put kibble down for their dog, it won't
yeah.
eat it, then they panic, then they change the kibble, and they keep changing it, making a dog more fussy. And many times, I'm like, if you want to increase your dog's food drive, raw food
Yeah.
can be a massive benefit.
Mm,
So, Nick, for the audience listening,
yeah.
if not raw food, what would be a second best alternative if somebody say couldn't feed their dog raw food for any
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
reason? Is there a brand, is there a food that you would?
Yeah. Totally. I would get the raw food and just stick it on a very low heat over a very short time and just put a little bit of color into it. Feed that.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
don't
That's not what
recommend?
you were expecting,
No,
but
no, no,
that.
no. It's your answers, man. So you don't recommend kibble at all?
No.
No.
Well, people say, can you recommend a good brand of kibble? And I say, you're kind of asking me for a good brand of cigarette. Yeah, like a healthy cigarette. Now, you could argue that some are more healthy than others because they've got less tar and
Mhm.
anything. But to actually have the conversation that cigarettes are good for you is obviously preposterous. And so for me, kibble is in the same, some are better than others, but to suggest that an ultra processed, high carbohydrate, synthetic food is food or is actually good for you long term is ridiculous, and I can't sign up to that. If I was going, if somebody really, I don't know, for whatever reason, couldn't have the food in the house, or that they were going to um, into a hospital, yeah, the dog was having, some spinal surgery or something, and they said no, you can't have raw food. Then the company that I like actually is called Different Dog, and they do lightly cooked food that they put in a little punnet, and they'll send out a box of these to you. That would be about as far as I go in those terms. If you're seriously considering feeding kibble, I think you need to have a good look at that, and you need to get some advice from a nutritionist, from somebody who can see both perspectives. Because the thing is, if you go down and talk to your local vet, they are, and they're not wrong, they will give you the industry standard, the veterinary industry standard, and the food industry standard, which is kibble is scientifically formulated, and your dog will do great on that. Now, I could give you half a day on why that is a pretty tenuous thing to say, but in their perception, and I completely respect them because they are being talked at by an industry. It's like you saying, is that car on the forecourt any good to the used car salesman? And him going, oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. Only one owner, only used it to go to the church, and on a Sunday, and but it's got 180,000 miles. Oh yeah, the little old lady liked to drive a lot. It is it's coming from an industry who wants to sell products. Okay, I have no problem with the vets. It's just I think that we need to learn as a profession to be very discerning about the messages that we are being given.
No, I agree. And I like your diplomatic answer because we get asked it all the time. What kibble would I recommend? And I say, in order for me to recommend something, I have to be willing to do it or give it or use it with my dog.
That's
And
a nice answer, actually. I've never used that, but I will steal that from you, Adam.
the reality is I wouldn't feed my dogs kibble.
Of course,
So I can't in good faith then, if I wouldn't give it to my dog, recommend it to a client's dog because that would
totally,
make me somewhat of a hypocrite.
totally.
I do always say that obviously not all kibbles are created equally,
Hmm.
but you're never going to get the same benefits as say you would on raw food.
Hmm.
Nick, is there any kibble brands that people should just outwardly avoid?
Anything beginning with K, ending with E. is would be, and Ibble in the middle. I would say it's a cigarette thing.
Yep.
Some are better made, some are more toxic and tarry and nicotine and all that kind of stuff. But for me, you can't even have that conversation if you want to be in the healthy space. So I would say not. If people or were forced through circumstance not to be able to feed raw, then I think, go for the best quality. I wouldn't go for the big brands. I would go for the smaller brands, which were cooking it at lower temperature and using real food ingredients, not meat meal. They were actually using meat. Yeah, that would be it. But that's a fairly sticky conversation for
Mm.
me. It's like asking, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of an analogy, asking oh,
It's all right, Nick. What we'll do
whatever
is
it
we'll
might be.
move on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I've
yeah.
got some common myths
Go
that
on then.
you
Yeah.
may like to debunk when it
Oh,
comes
for
to
sure. For
raw
sure.
feeding.
For
Like
sure.
a lot of people, for some reason, think you can't give it to puppies.
Yeah.
So are there
Yeah.
any common myths that you'd like to debunk, or
Yeah, I could give you hours on this. So and if you've got any that you hear a lot, do shout out and we can go through those. So the first one is, yeah, you can't give it to puppies, totally wrong. You can't give
dog's going
pup
to get salmonella?
no, totally wrong. Salmonella is really, really rare in dogs, in raw-fed dogs in the UK. There was a study that came out in 2019 from Helsinki University, and they looked at four, no, 445,000 households all over the world who were feeding raw food and said, how many of you people have had disease in the human family which you can directly relate to problems from raw food? And it boiled down to three cases, and they couldn't even prove those three cases. And what was really interesting, Adam, with that study is they found you're more likely to get some kind of infection, salmonella, listeria, E. coli or something like that, if your kids are in kindergarten than if you feed raw food.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. 2019 paper by Antorinimi. Very, very good paper. Really nice. So definitely worth looking at that. So you're going to get it salmonella. When I give talks, and I give a lot of talks on this sort of stuff, I say that there are four main myths, and they are benefits, bugs, balance, and bones. Okay, benefits. The World Small Animal Veterinary Association and many vets say there ain't no benefits, therefore, or scientifically proven benefits of raw food, therefore don't do it. That is not the case.
Wow.
There are dozens now. Okay, 10 years ago, not so many. 20 years ago, vanishingly small. But now there are dozens and dozens of papers demonstrating that raw food does you good. And there are no papers that I know of demonstrating that kibble is superior to raw. Okay? That's on the record. I'm saying it now. This is recorded and everything else. Okay? So, benefits, bugs. Okay? So the next one is bugs. So people talk about, oh, there's going to be worms in it. No, they're not, because it's been frozen. Freezing just eliminates worms. Yeah, so worms is yesterday's story. That's not on the cards. In terms of bacteria, raw-fed dogs are much more resistant to bacteria. Yeah, because if you've been fed a fairly sterile food all your life, and then you go to the park and you tread in a poo with salmonella in it, you come home, lick your feet, you're much more likely to go down with some kind of food poisoning than you are if you're raw food. And there are bugs, because that's what happens in life. As soon as you walk out the front door as a dog, you are exposed to these bugs. So it's part of that conditioning process. And there is less bacteria in the average raw fed dog than there is in minces and things like that from Tesco's. Okay, because the minces from Tesco's, they know that they are going to be cooked, whereas the raw food that we have in this country going to dogs, they know it's going to be raw. Therefore, they're absolutely squeaky clean on the gut bacteria contamination, on salmonella, listeria, and all these and Campylobacter. Okay, Campylobacter is maybe reduced a bit, but it can persist. But the number of cases that I see of Campylobacter from raw food is just, you can count them on one hand over 20 years. Yeah, if that. I can't even think of any at all. Okay, so benefit, bugs, balance. Then they'll say, oh, it's not balanced because the meal in front of them, if you analysed it, it may not be balanced. But if I analyse your tea tonight, Adam, I bet it would not be balanced. Yeah. Maybe tonight there's not enough calcium. Tomorrow there's maybe not enough protein. Maybe the next day there's too much sugar. And the next day, not enough magnesium. All right. That's an unbalanced diet. I don't think I've ever had a balanced meal in my entire life. And yet, fairly good for the mileage. And so what I'm saying is that is a distraction from the reality that if you feed a varied diet, a proper, good, excellent quality varied diet to a dog, they and the food will sort it out such that the dog gets the nutrients that they need because they've had 45 million years of practice.
But on
Okay?
the subject of balance, like
Balance.
the,
Yeah.
the argument is how can a complete kibble
Yeah.
that's ultra processed, that's
Yeah.
got a lot of unnecessary additives in it, how can that be healthier than raw food, which is proper meat, high percentage of meat, has everything in it that's nutritionally beneficial for the dog, and is whole foods? That's
Yeah.
the argument. It's like saying that eating steak is bad for you, but if you want to be fueled for the day, have cereal.
Yep, I completely agree. It's because if you look at it scientifically, it is ticking all the boxes that the AFCO, the American Association of Feed Control Officials, have said. Yeah, because the Hills and the Royal Canons of this world, they say, right, we want this food to have this spec, and they will make it to that spec. Whereas, yeah, because they're feeding the same thing every single day. Whereas what we're doing is feeding something different. Yeah, every day, every week. And that's how we get around the excess and deficiency issue. So just going back to these things, balance, no, benefit, bugs, balance, and bones. Okay, so the final one is bone. If you give your dog raw bones, you're going to kill them. Okay, that's not the case. If you give them cooked bones, you may damage them very, very badly. But if you're giving them raw, then they are good for the teeth. They're good for the mind because they're chewing, chewing, chewing. It's good for the stool quality. It is prebiotic, helps to feed the little bugs that make up your gut inside you, and it is a net massive benefit. Okay, so the criticisms are benefits, bugs, balance, and bones, and we've just shot them out of the water in what, 8 minutes flat.
I love that because one of the questions I get asked a lot when I speak about diet is what do you recommend for cleaning a dog's teeth? And dentistics, you see them on the TV and things like that. I'm like, they're absolute garbage. Don't use those. I was like, get
Totally.
your dog some decent bones. When
Hmm.
you hear them crunching into those bones, raw bones, that's the sound of some mental enrichment. That's the sound of the dog's teeth being cleaned. It's nutritionally beneficial for the dog.
Yeah.
You don't need all of this packaged dentistic crap. You just need some decent bones and they will help your dog.
Totally. Do take advice on the bone thing. Yeah, because you don't want to go straight from kibble on a Monday, for the and 5 years of kibble, finishes on a Monday. Mrs. Jones starts with the raw diet on a Tuesday with raw food and bones. That's not what I would suggest. I would suggest you do raw. You talk to one of the raw companies, and you get at least 2 or 3 months of a complete raw food under your belt, and you're feeling happy with it, and then begin to bring in the bones at that stage when the dog is used to the raw, and their gut bugs have accommodated and acclimatized to getting bone within the minces.
See, I love complete raw because it makes it a lot simpler for
It's
people.
really simple. Yeah.
Because again, I think a lot of people are put off by raw because they
Yeah.
think it's going to be overly complicated. And of course, if you
Yeah.
Google raw food, you have like a million different opinions, so much
Yeah.
information thrown at you that it's overwhelming. And people are worried they're going to do it wrong. Whereas a complete raw food, for the best part, it's laid out for you. You then just
Totally.
to
Yeah.
work out how much you should be feeding your dog. And then, of course, use a bit of common sense. Obviously, it's just a rough guide. If your dog's putting on weight, you're probably feeding it too much. If it's losing weight, you're probably not feeding it enough. Uh, but speak to somebody in that industry that is familiar with raw food. Speak to
Mm.
somebody in that industry that has nutritional background in raw food, or someone like yourself, Nick.
Or speak to one of your suppliers. You know, I could reel off half a dozen suppliers, but it wouldn't be fair on everybody else. But there are some great people. If you go to Google and you just quality raw food in the UK, you will get 1 dozen, 2 dozen suggestions. Just go for the top 10, give them a ring, and see what you think. It
And
is as simple as that.
the thing is, people selling raw food, they should be happy to answer questions anyway, because obviously they want you to buy their products. So the more
Yeah.
information they can give you, the more friendly they are, the chances are you're going to purchase their stuff.
If they're not knowledgeable and friendly, walk away.
That's what concerns me about some of these major pet shops is you'll go in there and they have no idea about any of the products in which they're
Mm,
recommending,
mm,
and
mm,
that
mm.
gets a bit scary.
Yeah, and I agree. And the raw store, I want to do a big shout out to all the raw stores up and down the country. When I first started, there was zero raw stores anywhere in the UK, but because people have kind of put their dogs on raw and gone, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to sell this stuff. I want to teach people about this. I want to get it out there. There are now, I would say, there's a raw store in like an independent raw store run by enthusiasts in every town in the UK, more or less.
Yeah, and I love that it's an ever-growing
Totally,
trend.
totally. Of
Nick, obviously we could talk about raw food all day. It's a
course we
subject that
could.
we're both very passionate
Of
about.
course, of
We
course.
must move on. There are other subjects in
I
which
think
we have you here for.
we have squandered your question list. But you know
Hey,
what?
if
Let's
if
talk about
somebody switches to raw food because of this 45-minute talk on raw food,
very cool.
very cool. So let's move on to other pressing subjects within
Go
the
for it.
veterinary field.
Yeah.
Let's talk about vaccinations.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on routine vaccinations?
Okay, I'm going to keep this brief because so that you can get through some of the other stuff so that people can go and look at references and stuff like that. I think that the World Small Animal Veterinary Association, who is kind of the top of the tree in the veterinary world, they say that never give an unnecessary vaccine, and they do say do titer testing. Now, titer test is a blood test that you take dead easy from the arm, from the neck, wherever, and you look at the antibodies. Okay, so if your dog has had a vaccine a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 8 years ago, and they've still got really good antibodies for parvo or distemper or hepatitis, why on earth would you want to give them a vaccine? DHP. Yeah, that's the every 3 year vaccine. Okay. But what the WSAVA say is do titer tests so that you can make a scientific appraisal of the vaccine status of the dog before you give it a vaccine. It's a bit like going to the garage and asking a lot of car analogies here, but you follow me.
I make
Okay.
driving analogies all the
Yeah,
time.
I think it's really good because cars are pretty simple compared to dogs. So it's like going to the garage and asking them to fill up your tank every year or every 3 years, even though your tank's already full because you've done a titer test and you know that the antibodies are really strong. Okay, because you've done a test. It's a really simple test. It doesn't cost the earth, shouldn't cost the earth, and so that's what the the authorities on high are telling us to do. It's just that there's a certain reluctance to move with this new well, I say it's new information. It's like 13 years old now. Okay, so and anybody can look that up. They can go to the WSAVA website and they can look up vaccination guidelines for cats and dogs. Yeah. Okay. It's there in black and white. Okay. And they're saying never give an unnecessary vaccine. And the way to tell is by doing a titer test. Yeah, because vaccines are very powerful drugs. I'm not against them, but I think we just should use them judiciously. We shouldn't use any drug just because it's there. We should use it when we've tried other less risky or less potentially toxic interventions have been tried. That would be my take on it.
Perfect. So you don't believe that we should be annually vaccinating dogs. We should be teeter testing. This is something that I'm a big believer in.
I think TC testing is really important. That's the blood test, and I think we should be doing that every 1, 2, or 3 years. When it comes to leptospirosis, really you've got to talk to your vet about your dog's lifestyle
Mhm.
and about your region. Okay, because lepto is there, in South Wales there's quite a lot of lepto. I think maybe in the south of England there may be quite a lot of lepto, but you need to talk to your vet, and they will be able to give you an appraisal as to whether they think it's a good idea. Little tip, they'll probably say yes, it's a good idea.
Yeah, like I said,
And also, sorry, Adam, I'm just jumping in there because I know time is short. I've got
it's all
three.
right. We can go over it. It's not a problem.
No, I can't. That's why I'm trying to
Oh
get all
no.
I'm trying to get all the goodness in. So
Right.
I've got 3 dogs downstairs. They're sight hounds. They live we're in a little village and we've got farms either end. So there are rats galore. We've got chickens and therefore we've got rats. I see a rat probably every day, and I have chosen not to vaccinate for leptospirosis, either lepto 2
Mhm.
or lepto 4. That's my decision, just to kind of to nail my colours to the mast, so that people can see. But they do need to talk because the lepto vaccine doesn't last as long as the distemper hepatitis parvovirus vaccine, and therefore you may have to top it up more often if you choose to do it, which I have not.
Right. Perfect. Right. What we'll do, Nick, is we'll
Yeah,
throw some of these as almost like a speed round, shall we?
good. Go
Yeah.
for it.
We'll have
Go
a
for it.
speed round.
Yeah,
So we move on to neutering and reproductive health.
yeah.
What is the best age to get your dog neutered?
0. Like, not at all. Do not do it. Okay. In Scandinavia, it is considered a surgical offense to neuter an otherwise healthy animal for no good reason. Whereas in the UK and in the States, we do it at the drop of a hat. Things are changing though, and there's a lot of work coming out. There are significant pros and cons to neutering, and you need to be able to balance both of those before you take that decision. And it shouldn't be a routine. Shouldn't be of course you're going to get neutered. Yeah, either spayed or castrated. Of course. Yeah, it shouldn't be an automatic move in that direction as it was when I was first in practice. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah,
There's my answer.
I'm seeing it happen a lot. And so
Totally.
my client today, for example, her dog was neutered at 8 months of age and
Mm.
behavior got drastically worse afterwards. And I'm like, I'm really not surprised. Uh, I was like, we are seeing a lot of vets now that are telling people that if you neuter your dog, you're likely to make the behavior worse, which I'm really, really happy about. I think
Yeah,
far too
yeah,
many people are getting dogs neutered, thinking it's going to be a miracle fix for dog behavior, and quickly they find out
yeah,
you actually needed to train the dog, and
yeah.
that removing body parts wasn't going to solve your issue because they weren't the problem in the first place. The lack of training and exposure
Surprise,
was.
surprise. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can be helpful,
I,
but
I
it's not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee.
No, and I think it's a blind leap of faith. Obviously, you can get things like testosterone blockers and things like that. What's your opinion on those?
I think supralorin can be quite useful in certain situations, but that would be another conversation, I think, Adam.
Very good. What would you recommend if somebody has a dog that has an undescended testicle?
I I'm not doing surgery, and I really miss it actually. I really used to really enjoy doing surgery, so I haven't done any surgery for 20 or more years. But if I have conversations with people who come to me with dogs with undescended testicles, I cannot see a reason that the vet doesn't go in and take out the internal testicle, which is more predisposed to cancer, and leave the external testicle for hormone balance in that male dog for the rest of his life. Okay, in the old days they didn't used to want to do it because there's a certain amount of heredity with retained testicle. But I think that if both parties, the vet and the dog owner, if everybody kind of make sure that they get the paperwork straight, I haven't got a problem with just removing internal testicles, single internal testicles. And dogs can do absolutely great on a single testicle.
Yeah. No, because it's something that we're seeing more and more dogs with undescended testicles, but the vets leaving it there, not actually touching anything. And I have seen cases where it's causing the dog pain, which can obviously cause the dog to be reactive. I had
Yeah.
one case where the vet didn't want to take the testicle away because the
Hmm.
dog was reactive,
Yeah.
and they wanted it trained first, but I didn't want to train the dog because the dog had an undescended testicle, which I was 99% certain was contributing to the dog's reactivity. We was kind of
Mm.
stuck. The vet wanted me to do my job, but I couldn't in good faith do my job because the dog, in my opinion, wasn't physically healthy.
Yeah.
And we're finding that happens more and more. Do you
Okay.
think,
Yeah. I think you should. I think vets. No, I would feel obliged to remove the internal testicle because they are more likely to get. It's a thing called Sertoli cell cancer, which is an estrogen producing cancer, and it's not the worst cancer in the world, but you don't want it. And if you can just, remove in the first, 2, 3, 4 years, the internal testicle, leave the external one, then I can't see a problem with that.
yeah, I worked with a border collie years ago that had an
Yeah.
undescended testicle, and he was extraordinarily human aggressive. When they removed that testicle,
The internal one.
yep, the aggression
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. That is not a hormonal effect. It may have been that the dog had the testicle was kind of parked in the groin and was really painful. I think pain, last time I looked, something like 40% of behavior cases had an element of pain in them. That's really bad. And the other one is for people to have a look at thyroid disease. If things don't make sense with their cat, with their dog, have a look at, there's a book called The Canine Thyroid Epidemic by Dr. Gene Dodds. If you get your sidekick to just see if you can bring that up on, I don't know, Amazon or something.
He's
The
on it.
Canine, he's good, isn't he? The Canine Thyroid Epidemic
It's
by
whether he
Dr.
can spell thyroid.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm sure he can. Thyroid Epidemic by Dr. Jean, Jeandodds. It'll be
He's
there. And you need to get that out to all your people where, I don't know, they're putting on weight and they can't explain it, or they've just suddenly got really jumpy, aggressive for no good reason, and there's no pain involved, and the behavior, the behavior program, the training is exactly the same. Think thyroid. Anything that doesn't make sense, think thyroid.
Perfect. Nick, we're pushed for time,
Yeah,
so very quickly.
go for it. Go for it.
It's really hot. Obviously, summer is here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about heat and dogs. How hot is too hot to take your dog out?
Depends on the dog. Okay. So when I was in practice, I used to work with an Aussie, and he used to call me a reptile because I'm so cold. I would be wearing two jumpers in the middle of summer. Yeah. Whereas he would be wearing a t-shirt in winter. Okay. Whether he's Australian or not, doesn't matter, make any difference. So different people perceive and experience temperature in different ways. Yeah. There are people who wander around in winter in a t-shirt and shorts.
Yep.
And there are people in summer who wear, a coat in the UK. Okay. If you go elsewhere, it's a whole different story. So number one is it depends on the relationship with the dog. Some dogs like to be hot. Some dogs like to be cold. Okay. If you're a cold loving dog, then you're going to suffer more in the heat by definition. Black labs, for example. I've got a black lurcher downstairs and he really gets hot really, really quickly. The other two, they just pant and they're happy as Larry. Okay. So I would say the temperature, you could do degrees, anything above 25 degrees, don't take the dog out. But yeah, like I say, if it's a Saluki who was bred in the desert, then, it's, yeah. So I think that just simple guidelines are a little bit difficult. When you take your dog out, they can't do more than 100 yards up the road before they're panting and I want to go home. then it's obviously too hot for that individual dog. So there's a lot written about this stuff online. I'm sure you talk to people about it as well. Don't get them over hot. Don't put them in a situation that you would not be comfortable being in, whether it's in the car or under a tree or having a picnic or whatever it might be. You know, walking on concrete, try taking your shoes off, get your bare feet onto that concrete. Is it blooming hot or not? You know, really
Yeah.
simple stuff. But the thing I would say is there's a homeopathic remedy called belladonna, which I have brought really very serious heat stroke cases out of. So I use belladonna, just, yeah, belladonna, Atropa belladonna, 200C, and I would give it every 5 minutes for the first hour to a heat stroke victim, as well as, you know, hydration and wet towels and getting them in a cool shady area and all that stuff, and a cold drip if they're really bad, you know.
Yeah, I locked myself in a car with my business partner with a window cranked open to demonstrate
Whoa.
how quickly and we parked in the shade. We drove around, windows open as you normally would do, and then we parked up, left the window cranked in the shade, and how quickly that temperature rises is
Wow.
scary. And
Totally.
my business partner also walked on hot pavement barefoot to prove a point as well.
Oh, good. Well done, lads. That's really good. Yeah, yeah. Because people won't believe you, or they'll go, "Oh, what's 25? What's 27? What's 29?" But if you say it's not very sunny, but it's been quite sunny for the last 4 days, and I cannot, and it's I don't know 2 in the afternoon, and I cannot walk on this pavement in bare feet. Okay, go figure. I think that's really good education. So well done, you.
Wicked. Dogs, obviously, that are most risk of heat stroke primarily would be flat-faced breeds, would be overweight dogs.
Yep.
Is there any other dogs that people need to be sort of more careful with? Say maybe a puppy or an elderly dog.
Yeah, I think any dog who's in an extreme, you know, pregnant, they're not going to like too much heat. The elderly, puppies, sick dog, um, but also the thing that most people don't talk about is this is the dog that will always need to lie down in the river at the end of a walk because they get over hot even in the middle of winter. Okay, that dog is going to be more predisposed to heat stroke, even in relatively mild car temperatures, than the dog who can run for miles on the hottest of days and go and sleep in the sun when they come home. That.
Oh, in right. Thank you. Sorry, you cut out there very briefly for a second. The screen
Okay, sorry.
froze.
Okay.
Can you briefly give us your top tips for keeping a dog cool when it's particularly hot?
Well, we've kind of gone through those, but just in the last couple of minutes, because I'm going to have to
Yep.
fly. Top tips for keeping dogs cool. Okay,
Just to
so
summarize for the audience listening at home.
yeah, I mean, there's a thousand. So I'm going to concentrate on the food side of things. Feeding food cold. If your dog will take it, that's quite good because that will be a cool boost to the dog. I use bone broth, put it into ice cube trays, and I feed that regularly during hot days, especially to the dogs who are prone to overheating, like my lurcher down in the room downstairs. I would be putting ice cubes in the water bowl, loads of water when they're at risk of this. I think fans are fantastic. And if you have to moisten the dog, you know, you can get these coats that you moisten and then sit them in front of a fan. I know people who do that all night over the whole of the summer because the dogs, you know, haven't got aircon or what have you, and they'll do that. And also, the last little tip before I disappear would be there are gel mats, you know,
Mhm.
cool gel mats, and I think they are worth their weight in gold. But also, just choose the coolest corner of the house. And if that's the downstairs loo, right, well, that's where the dog has to sleep, unless they're distressed at being, you know, left on their own in the downstairs loo. Just choose the coolest place and let them sleep there. because they will be grateful. I think the most important thing is never restrict a dog's access to the cooler bits, the warmer bits. So in winter they need to be able to try and get warm, and in the summer they need to be able to effectively try and get cool. Okay, never kind of, I don't know, string them up in the garden and in the knowledge that the sun is going to come around and they're not going to be able to get out of it. Okay, always maximize choices so that they are able to choose exactly where they want to be.
Perfect. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Before you shoot,
Yeah.
where can people find out more information from you? We have mentioned it throughout this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the easy one is my website is holisticvet.co.uk. I'm also on Facebook. Just type in Holistic Vet and you'll get there. And I'm on Instagram on Holistic Vet UK. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're a super, super busy man. There's a lot of to and fro in to find a date to lock you in.
I know.
It's all good being in demand, but thank you so
Yeah,
much.
bless you. Yeah, there's a lot of sick dogs out there, but there's a lot of people who are suddenly waking up to the capabilities, the possibilities of real raw food as being a direct route to health, which is just so exciting. I can't talk about this stuff enough.
No, it's important stuff. The message has to get out there, and this obviously food. We spoke about it for a good 45 minutes, but the reason I wanted to speak about that the most more than anything else is because it is so important.
Yeah.
People, I don't think, are taking diet seriously enough when it comes to the health and behavior of their dog.
Totally right.
Are just not aware of how much it can affect their dog for the better or worse.
Yes.
And so having somebody come on here like yourself that's been recommending it, talking about it, banging on about it for years.
Years and years. Yeah.
And kind of back what I'm saying to clients and everything. I think the more we can use audiences and push it to people, the more we can help dogs long run.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Okay then, Nick. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And Evan will be in contact with you about where we go from here. We don't have an exact date for the podcast and the release of the podcast. Obviously, we're recording a lot of these and we're releasing them every 2 weeks. But Evan will liaise with you back and forth. And
okay, that's
any
great.
questions or anything, just give us a shout.
Fab. Yeah. I hope that was okay for you, Adam. I really appreciate it. It's good.
Nick, I really enjoyed it. I listened. It's brilliant.
Evan, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, mate. Guys, you're doing great work. It's absolutely brilliant. I am going to have to run, otherwise I'm going to get slaughtered.
Thank you so much, Nick.
All right.
We'll speak soon.
Take it easy, guys. Keep up the good work, yeah?
Bye-bye.
All the best. See ya.